Okay, today I am here with Manisha Thakor, who I absolutely love and adore. Welcome, Manisha.
Amy, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to hear your voice.
It is, I'm like smiling as I'm hearing yours.
Oh, yeah, even though we're like in two different parts of the world and I just love Skype and technology, it feels like you're right here.
So true. It's a calming effect.
Yeah, it's so yeah, the voice, yeah, hearing each other's voices feels so good when, we're so like on text messaging and Facebook and the internet these days, like just like hearing a voice is so calming.
It really is. It makes that connection. And I know we're going to talk about abundance today. And I have to just say there's something about human contact. And we'll come back to this in the conversation that I think we've forgotten about how much abundance that can bring into our lives.
Yeah, I love that. We will definitely talk about that. But let's just jump right in. As you know, I've been writing a blog now for 3 years. I can't believe that. And I made this big promise not to shop for clothes or shoes for an entire year, which I did. Somehow that happened and changed. Oh, can you hear me? Did I lose you, Manish?
Said, brava.
Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, good. I thought I lost you for a second. Yeah, so my promise back then was not to shop for clothes or shoes. And my promise this year is to explore this big idea of abundance. And I'm going into this year asking the question, what is it? What is abundance? And how do we create it? And I'm talking to all different experts. And you, Manisha, are like the money expert in my life. I turn to you for everything financial and money. And so I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. What is abundance?
You know, it's interesting because I was thinking about abundance in sort of the context of my formal education.
Mm-hmm.
Having kind of had a 20-ish year career in the Wall Street world and having done my MBA at Harvard, and in that world, abundance is so often defined by a number, how much money you have. And now I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I am really struck at how abundance, money is a tool. It helps lubricate your ability to achieve abundance, but it in and of itself is not abundance. And I think of abundance as the ability to maximize every unit of, for every minute that you are here on this planet, maximizing the amount of joy that you are able to extract from that minute. That, to me, is what abundance is.
Oh, I love that. So maximizing every unit of joy, really. Money is a tool to maximize the joy.
Yeah, I mean, when I stop and I think about kind of the relationship between money, joy, and abundance, the book that really comes to my mind is one that I read back in 1992 when I graduated from college, and it was called Your Money or Your Life. And it contained a concept that has basically guided me like a touchstone. And the concept basically is that when you work, you exchange your life's energy for money. That's what's happening. And so when you spend money, you're spending your life's energy. And so that's resonated so strongly with me. And I've gone through periods in my career and my life where it felt like abundance was about trying to get more money. But what I've observed in my professional life, where I have managed money for exceptionally high net worth individuals and corporations and endowments, is more money doesn't necessarily bring more happiness, which is, a somewhat trite and obvious saying. So then what does? And I feel like it's making the most of every moment, which is kind of another way of saying being really fully present. And to me, that's what abundance is. And having money can help you achieve that. If you're struggling, and you're stressed about paying bills, then you don't feel present because you're worried about money. And so having good money management skills to me is about freeing yourself up in order to be your authentic self, to be fully present and extract the most joy out of each moment. That's how I've really come to think about it.
Oh, I really love this. This is a really this is a really good reframe, right? Of the money piece of the abundance puzzle. I think that it's so easy to get lost in the worry and what you don't have, or the big number that you're aiming for, like you're talking about, um, where we lose the connection with the present.
It's true, and it's so magnified by kind of the world we live in. You know, we started off talking about the positive side of technology. The negative side is that we're just bombarded by nonstop media images. And so what happens is these wants kind of bubble up in you. And so, I mean, it could be something you see on TV. It could be getting a, a magazine and or a catalog in the mail. It could be getting email with sales notices, and suddenly things you never even thought you in fact things you may not have even known existed suddenly become these things you absolutely have to have. And so abundance so easily can get confused with having not just more money but also having more things. And yet with more things, once again, there isn't necessarily a one-for-one correlation. And sometimes there's an inverse correlation between how many things you have and how happy you are.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Given my little journey with my blog and not shopping for a year, it really forced me, just going through the process of not shopping really forced me to uncover what I was really trying to fill. Like, what hole inside of me was trying to be filled with something, whether it was a pair of shoes or a new dress.
Right.
Um, it really was never about the pair of shoes or the pretty new dress. It was always about something much deeper, and really a lack of joy. It was really filling that space of joy with that there was a hole with something else that really, a new pair of shoes only lasts so long, and the thrill of a new dress wears off pretty quickly.
And it's interesting when you say that, because I feel like when you see people who are at peace, another way to think about it is you're feeling whole. And when you see people who are in pain, or you're experiencing any kind of agony or discomfort yourself, oftentimes it's because there's something's missing. And it's so easy to try and plug that with something external when we live in a world where we tend to make snap judgments based on what somebody is wearing or driving or eating or doing. And so it's so easy to get away from what it is that really defines who you are and what brings you joy. And I think the closer you can come back to those latter things, that's when you get true abundance.
Yeah. I'm also finding that this word joy is really coming up in all of my interviews. And, from a vibrational level, I had an expert talking about human vibrations, and joy is really the highest vibration we can operate at. So I love hearing that your interpretation and definition of abundance is really connected to the joy piece.
And interesting to me is when you think about money, I feel like the association most people have with it is either more or not enough, rather than joy. And I keep thinking, like, wow, what if we got away from more and not enough as being the two posts?
Yeah.
And we tried to link it to joy. How might that change our behavior? And I think about it like in very specific, concrete personal finance terms, an exercise that I love recommending and people often find really insightful is to track your spending for an entire week. Literally write down everything you spend. Mm-hmm. And the idea isn't to add it up. The idea is to take out a highlighter at the end of that week and highlight everything you spent money on that truly brought you joy. Now, when it comes to looking at your budget, you can take a look at the things you didn't highlight and see what you might be able to cross off that list. And there's a very simple way to help get your budget back in line, and you haven't taken any joy out of your life because you already identified that those items weren't bringing you joy.
I love that. That is such a great exercise. And it really is concrete, like you said. I mean, this is using something very concrete and measurable in your life. Because I think that a lot of the conversation that I see and hear and articles I read about joy, they're less concrete. They're sort of airy-fairy.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for people to connect, truly connect and digest and understand, okay, what does that mean? Like, what is joy? It's like when people say, I want to be happy. Well, what does that mean? So I love this exercise to really write down what you're spending and highlight the expenditures that are truly joyous, because it's a very concrete exercise.
And another one, again, this also is inspired by Your Money or Your Life. It's also a concept that has been put out in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, is to take your income and turn it into an hourly figure. And so most of us work 2,000 hours a year, which is 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. Yeah. And, so if you're earning, I'll just pick an easy number to use. If you're earning $50,000 a year and you divide that by 2,000, you're earning $25 an hour. And now when you see something that costs $250, you can compare that $250 to the $25 an hour essentially you're earning and say, wow, that's 10 hours of my life's energy. Am I going to get enough joy that the return on this expenditure is going to be a net positive for me? And by framing it that way, that's another really tactical way that you can blend together personal finance, budgeting, getting on top of your money situation with a desire to increase abundance and joy and authenticity in your life.
I love that too. They're all resources, right? The time and the money. Like these are, like you started talking earlier about money being a tool. These are really resources that connect to this bigger concept, this bigger goal of joy.
Precisely. And I think that, in every culture throughout history, there have been all sorts of quotes that will say it much more articulately than this. But money isn't an end in and of itself. It's a means to an end. And I think what happens in a society such as ours, which is so wonderful, it's wonderful that we live in a democratic society where you can work hard and the sky is the limit. But the flip side is it's very easy to use as your touchstone in life metrics that don't relate to your heart. And money in a capitalistic society so often is one of those metrics that's used in that way. Again, as I said earlier, more money is better. More money means you are a better person or you are more successful. And when you really try and turn that on its head and say, the people who are experiencing the most abundance in life are the ones that are, for whatever amount of resources they have at that particular amount of time, are maximizing the amount of joy that they are able to extract from those resources. That's an abundant life.
I love that. I love it exactly how you said that, and really the fact that this is kind of a universal truth going through many, many different generations and cultures and history, that the abundance piece is really what you extract out of the time you have.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, in almost every culture, there's some sort of saying that boils down to, the purpose of life is to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it comes back to this concept of joy. And when I think about money, and again, wanting to get back to something that can be tactical, another way, one thing that causes a lot of people stress is um, spending too much or living beyond their means. Another thing that can cause people stress, however, is just not feeling like they have a grasp on their finances. Just the unknown can feel really overwhelming and really stressful. And what I find is that when people just commit to trying to get a little more intimate with their personal finances, those small baby steps can lead to such a feeling of confidence. It shifts your relationship with money. And by that I mean simple things like knowing what you earn and what you're spending in aggregate. You don't need to measure every last little thing. One way you can do that is, at the end of each month, take a look at how much in aggregate you spent on credit cards, how much you withdrew from the ATM, how much you wrote in checks. And in those three buckets, well, there you go. Now you've got your spending, and you can compare that to what was coming in. You can see if you're saving money. And so by trying to really getting to know your finances in a way that does not feel overwhelming, another great way, I think, to get yourself closer to that abundant life.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because you're speaking to the perfect target right now, being that I was once married to a man who was a banker, and so I entrusted him with all of our financial day-to-day decision. I mean, everything, because I thought it was clearly in his skill set, and he could do a way better job than I could. And it turned out, when that relationship went away and we were divorced, I not only didn't know what was going on financially in my life, I was locked out of all of our finances because of the way he had set up. He had literally set up our finances so that I didn't have access to them. I had no idea. I literally had no idea, because I could spend money, and I could see all of my checks going into our bank account. I could look at the money and see where it was going, and I could spend it. But when I went into the bank to get my last paycheck, when I was leaving my husband, the banker literally told me, "You don't have access." So talk about having to rebuild and relearn. And man, it's tough. It's tough coming from a place of utter confusion. And then, what you were just talking about, like just getting a grasp on, okay, what do I have? And where's it going? And what decisions do I have to make? It was a hard process, but it was so empowering, amazingly empowering.
And, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind, which is, when have you felt most abundant or joyful about your finances?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, well, unfortunately, it was when I was married and I wasn't thinking about it. I truly wasn't thinking about the money. I knew it was there, and I was earning really good money, and I was spending money, and it was like I was very much in the flow, because I felt like it was taken care of, and I knew what was coming in, and I knew what I was spending, and I knew what was being saved, and I knew what was being invested. But I felt like it was, very much in the flow and taken care of. And unfortunately, that's really the a point in my life when I was the least educated about my money, because I really didn't know how it was set up and who was handling it.
Mm-hmm.
So ignorance is bliss, I guess. I don't know.
No? Well, it's funny as you say that. I mean, what I take from that is what you are describing is you are in a state of, to some degree, what what you're saying is that you were very present. You weren't distracted by worries or tensions about money.
Yep.
In this case, it was a false state of confidence around that.
Yeah.
But if you can get to that point through committing to yourself that you want to develop your financial skills the same way you would your spiritual skills or your ability to relate on an emotional level the way that you want to with the people that you love in your life. When you're able to think about your financial well-being that way and marry that with that kind of blissfulness that you were feeling at that time. So marrying the knowledge with the blissfulness, that is financial nirvana.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. I actually read somewhere, I thought this was a great quote. It was something along the lines of you have to be willing to date your money like you would date, your boyfriend. Like you have to get that close and intimate and I guess blissful really is the word about spending time with your money and nurturing it like you would a relationship.
It's true. I mean, it's like anything in life. What you pay attention to is what you get more of and what starts to blossom. And so when you don't pay attention to your money, you experience the opposite effect of when you do it, when you do pay attention to your money. And of course, the quality of the attention and the intention matters very much. So, you can take it to the extreme if you obsess about money to the exclusion of all else, and you focus on money as the end in and of itself, as opposed to being this tool or this lubricant to increase joy in your life. That can be just as detrimental as completely ignoring it and being in that kind of cloudy-headed state, if you will, of not knowing what's going on and feeling like everything's okay because you can't see how close you are to hitting the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that, and it's interesting because we began this conversation talking about the human connection and how it's so great to hear your voice. I know you're out in the world, and I follow you on your moneyZEN email newsletter, and we touch base over email now and then. But oh my gosh, it sounds so wonderful to hear your voice. And I'm thinking that this is the connection. It's a relationship, and this is the same sort of connection we need to create with all the tools in our life, right? Like the time and the money, the people. Like these are all not tools, but resources. They're wonderful resources.
They are, and they're assets. I mean, your time, your joy, the people in your life, they're all assets. They're positive things on your personal balance sheet of life, if you will. And the liabilities, the negative things, or the worries, the stressors, and so I think to the extent when I blend together money and abundance, I think it's really the closer you can come to really being conscious of the way in which you relate to your money, and the more intentional you are. And that doesn't mean having to monitor every last dime or feel constrained or choked by a budget. It means just having, as you said, just a healthy relationship with it.
Yeah, I really love this idea of looking at money and joy and their connection. And ironically, I am sitting right now in Boston on Newbury Street. And I'm in an office space that's one block over from Boylston, where the marathon was last week. And Boylston Street just opened up yesterday. So it has been a ghost town. It's been a crime scene from after the bombings that occurred last week. And today I was out on Boylston. I met a friend for lunch, and it's teeming with people. It's just like, it's a beautiful day. There are so many people walking down the street. It's just full. It's abundant. It's absolutely abundant. And I think that's such a physical mirror of, that contrast of we went from a crime scene and something so horrific and full of worry and a ghost town really down here, to a week later now it's full of love and people are outside and are being very intentional about coming down to Boylston Street. And so I think that, like, that's the joy, right? Like, filling that space with joy. It relates to every part of our life, including our money.
It truly does. It truly does. And when I think about when people don't feel that, when there are blocks, or or um, pockets of emptiness, often what I observe is resistance. You know, and so I mean, if you know, kind of in the context of Marianne Williamson, and all there is fear and love. Love is the form of an abundant relationship with your money, and it's not in the context of you know, the love of money is the root of all evil kind of love for your money. It's the opposite. And when people are having blocks, so often it's brought about by fear and isolation. And so what you're describing is it's the reunion of humanity and joy and being present. And I think that's why you felt the good karma. And so the money you spent on that lunch was increasing your abundance, and it was paying forward because it was also helping the businesses in the area that had been shut down and lost that revenue over that period in time start regaining itself. And you can start to see how that positive spiral of abundance as it relates to money can get going.
Yeah, it definitely felt like being down there today had a momentum. Like, people were very purposeful about being on Boylston Street. And honestly, Manisha, like, if I look at my budget, that lunch I would totally highlight with a yellow highlighter. Like, it was absolutely joyful on so many levels because of where I was, you know, the actual location on Boylston Street, and knowing the business just opened their doors yesterday, and being with a friend, you know, full of joy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm so with you.
Well, I really have loved talking to you. I think you are full of so many amazing tips and ideas, and you really come at this sector of our life, the finance piece, from such a beautiful place, and it's so insightful and wise. You're so wise, Manisha. I have to say, every time I talk to you or hear from you, you've got this nugget of incredible wisdom. I just really want to thank you for sharing your gifts with me and everybody here at the Promise Daily today.
Oh, Jamie, thank you. And if I can just say the same right back to you, your work has touched so many people's lives, including my own, on numerous occasions. So just brava to you, and please keep it going because you are bringing joy and abundance to so many of us.
Oh, thank you. That felt good. I love it.
Mwah.
Mwah. Love talking to you, and we will do this again.
Fantastic.
Awesome.